Welcome in, everyone. I'm Jo, and this is your daily tarot pool. Zaza has come to say hi. Hi. She loves chilling with me. She's often too low for the camera. Anyway, before we get into today's card, which is the Nine of Wands in reverse, let's just quickly ground into the energy of the ones and the nine. So the ones is associated with fire, the element of fire, and it speaks to energy, to drive, to instincts, to passion, action, and sometimes burnout when that fire has been burning for far too long without any rest. And when we're looking at number nines, these are the numbers and cards that often represent the final stretch, the completion point, where something has been carried as far as it can in its current form before it reaches the tens, the wish cards. And so bringing these two together in the ones with ones and the number nine, we're dealing with kind of the edge of endurance, resilience, the place where kind of just resilience and motivation and willpower meets like a point of almost fatigue. And today, with the Nine of Wands coming out in the reversed, this is not about pushing harder. It's about noticing like where you've been pushing, where you actually don't need to anymore. So like the Nine of Wands upright is endurance. It's the energy of someone who has been through a lot but is still standing. You can see him, he's got his bandage on his head and he's like got all his weight on this wand. He's holding himself up with the wand. But reverse, something shifts. This is where our system starts to say, I'm tired of being on guard. Not because something is actively wrong, but because something inside of you has been bracing like for far too long. Like maybe you're fighting, battles of the past. That constant bracing, it becomes its own kind of exhaustion. And so, today's energy might feel like emotional fatigue that comes out of nowhere. So often these past battles that we're fighting, or boundaries that we're finally putting up, but it's like boundaries that our inner child should have had, and now we're finally able to stand up for that inner child and allow them these boundaries. But it can be exhausting because we're fighting with ghosts here. And this can show up with like emotional sensitivity coming out of nowhere, like things that also wouldn't normally affect you are affecting you, and maybe a desire to withdraw, like not an escapism, but just a withdrawal to finally soften. It can also show up as like this quiet realization that you've been over preparing for situations that aren't actually happening anymore. So there's this almost like allowance and acceptance that those battles are over, and you can put down your ones, your tool, your armor. There's a difference between being resilient and being in this constant state of defense, and this card is gently pointing to that line, because sometimes kind of what we call strength is actually just learned tension, and like holding it all together is often not so strong because it keeps you very rigid and then stops you from being flexible and being able to adapt and change. And flexibility is the strongest link. The most flexible person is the strongest link. So many of us have these parts of us that learned that if I stay alert, I stay safe. But that same pattern can start to create exhaustion where there doesn't really need to be any. And so if you're constantly on alert, especially in spaces that you don't have to be, so if you're lying in your bed at night on alert about what might happen or what has happened, you're not getting proper rest. And therefore, when something does happen, you're not going to actually have the energy or the cognition to maybe even realize it's happened. So the reversal is not asking you to drop your boundaries. It's asking you to separate the real boundaries from your real boundaries from exhaustion-based protection. You know, so today you might want to sit with a couple of questions. Where are you still bracing for something that isn't actually happening anymore? Are you having fights with ghosts or rearranging past situations, like trying to, like, almost time traveling and trying to change the past? I know I used to do a lot of that. And what would it feel like to not hold that tension right now? If you move with this energy consciously and curiously, it looks like choosing rest without guilt. Drop that guilt, because guilt, if someone's pushing a boundary that you're putting out there or holding up for yourself and you feel guilty about it, it's like having a battle with yourself. So it's also about like not engaging in unnecessary emotional battles, allowing things to be good enough instead of over-managing or being a perfectionist, having to be the best granddaughter or the best daughter. If it's good enough, it's good enough. And, you know, giving your nervous system permission to soften. This is the most important. This is the message from this card. You don't have to prove your strength. Definitely not today. And that part of your story has already been lived. You know, this is permission to put that down, to put your ones down. You can just relax for a moment. Let today be less about holding it all together and more about like noticing where you don't actually need to hold so tightly anymore. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in tomorrow's daily reading. I've also posted a new moon reading for the upcoming new moon, so I'll link that in the description and at the end of this video. Thank you so much, and see you in the next one.